is Julia with iCadenza, and I'm here with Arden Kaywin, who is an indie pop singer who has been getting a lot of attention lately, and her songs have appeared on ABC, NBC, MTV, and a number of other networks, and we're really excited to speak with her today. So hello, Arden.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My first question is, how did you first get started singing?
Oh my goodness. I actually was one of those kids who was just like always wanting to be performing and dancing and, you know, like wear a tutu to first grade. And like, it was not enough for me to just kind of be normal. Like I always had to have music on. So I think my parents picked up on that and they put me in piano lessons and they put me in ballet class. And both of those things were, I adored. And, I was in children's choirs and, that kind of thing. And then I started, because I was in dance and I was kind of musical, I started doing a lot of children's musical theater and summer camps that had to do with, performing arts. And that's where I took my first voice lesson because I was doing all these musicals and I was like, well, maybe I should learn how to sing, so I wasn't just kind of stuck in the dancing chorus. And I always sang and I always loved to sing. So it was kind of an easy progression. I was 12, 13 when I started taking voice lessons, mainly because I wanted to do musical theater. And as I got older and my voice matured, my voice teacher, who was a classically trained teacher, singer, heard in my voice, I guess, something that kind of led her to think that I could do classical music. And so she took me in more of a direction of opera and classical voice as I got older, 16, 17, 18. And then I went to college at Oberlin Conservatory, which was a classical conservatory. So actually starting my musical progression has been very kind of musical theater to classical and then pop. So it's been a pretty broad spectrum. But if it weren't for the whole musical theater thing, I don't think I would have started taking voice lessons or singing in any real way at that age. So.
But even while you were pursuing opera, and you actually have sung in incredible places, including San Francisco Opera, you were always interested in pop, right? So how did you end up making that transition from opera to pop?
I basically did a total 180 in my life. I love singing opera, and I love the art form. It's incredibly intellectual and it's a challenge. And opera is the kind of thing where if you can do it, generally you do it because so few people can do it. And in my case, I was doing pretty well with it. I sang classically until I was 25. And I sang with Opera Theater of St. Louis, San Francisco Opera, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Aspen Music Festival, a bunch of places professionally, and just started to get really burnt out. Because I never stopped to think if I wanted to do it. I was just doing it because I was good at it and I could progress easily. I got roles. I got into, to the major conservatories for undergrad and for grad, and without stopping to think, how much do I really want to do this for my career and for my life? And after 3 years after I graduated from master's program at 22 and then singing for 3 years professionally, I got really burnt out. I was in San Francisco and just feeling like very creatively stunted myself. Here I was singing with some of the best singers in the world. Denise Graves was a principal doing Carmen when we were there. And as a young artist and somebody in the position of learning, I expected to be kind of, pardon the expression, shat upon by the conductors and the coaches and the directors because we were there to learn and to even refine our craft while we were doing the supporting roles and stuff. And then I would look at the, stars like Denise Graves and how they were treated, and it was like they're the best singers in the world and they're still being told, you are flat for this, you need to do this for that note, you need to be here for that. And I'm like, here's, somebody like Denise Graves who is the best in the world singing the role that she is known for, and she's still getting that. I was like, I am I ever going to be happy doing this? You know, it's like in math, you have pi, 3.14, blah, 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 and it just keeps going, right? And I felt like the better I sang and the more I was getting hired, the further away from that, from the pinnacle I felt. It's like it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller increments of refining. And it became all about that. It became about all the voices in my head of technique and performance practice, 200 years of history, language, diction, all of this stuff, what the conductor wants, what the director wants. And it was like, singing is not fun anymore. Like, where is my creativity in all of this? And right at the same time, my brother, who's in the movie business, was living in LA and had hooked me up with this composer who did a lot of film scoring. And we started doing a project together. And I would come down on my days off and be in the studio working with her. And it was like night and day. I would, you know, be in the studio having a ball, feeling really creative, feeling really fulfilled, and being like, okay, so this I could do, you know. And I ended up rewriting a lot of the music with her, and, you know, singing the parts in the studio for the vocalist. And when my contract at San Francisco was up, I was like, well, I can go back to New York, where my entire world is all classical music, or maybe I move to Los Angeles and I see what I can do with this kind of recording industry, you know. And I had written music. I'd always written music, I'd always written pop music, but I never played it for anybody. I never like told anybody about it, because when you're doing classical music in college, in graduate school, you don't tell people that you write and sing pop music, because there's a bit of a snootiness there that is unfortunate, you know. So I would go into the practice room, and for like 15 minutes before I'd practice my Mozart or my Brahms or whatever, I would just sit at the piano and jam. And I never told anybody, and I never recorded anything, and I never had any intention to. You know, some people paint or keep a journal, and that's just their outlet. And so I like wrote pop songs. But once I had this experience in the recording studio, and I realized, well, hey, maybe I need to like look at this more and see what I might be able to make of this. So I moved to LA, kind of had one foot in the classical world, one foot in the recording world, pop world. And, you know, you just start to meet people and collaborators, and one thing leads to another. And then, you know, 6 years later, I haven't sung opera professionally since then. So that's the very long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's a great story. As someone who is so immersed in the classical world and is now so immersed in the pop world, I think you have a really unique perspective on being able to compare the two styles, and you know what each style gives to an audience member and to a performer. And you know, today classical music is really struggling to reach especially the younger generation that is so immersed in pop. And what would you say to someone who's young and really doesn't know anything about classical music? What do you think is the value in classical music? Does it share anything with pop?
Well, the thing that it shares with pop is that it has the same tendency to pull at your emotional heartstrings. It's just that generally the younger generation is just not exposed to it. They're not given the tools to understand it, so they think they don't like it when they've never even really experienced it. You know, I had growing up arts education in public school. We had music class. We had, you know, kids in most public schools across the country today are just not exposed to it. So they think they don't like it. They just don't know it, you know? So if you play, you know, say the opening overture to Marriage of Figaro, you know, it's a very famous piece of music. Right? And you explain what is going on, you know, to the child, and you explain all the things, all the instruments and whatever, and you explain what the conductor is doing. And then this child is actually experiencing the music on many different levels and can be excited by what's going on, you know, or even something really bombastic, you know, like Bruckner. But without the difference between the pop music and the classical music, I think, is that pop music doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't need somebody taking you by the hand and showing you the joy of it, showing you the excitement of it. And so we have a generation of kids who all they know is pop music. And it can be just as emotive. It can pull at your heartstrings just the same way. A great pop song gets in your head. It makes you want to dance. It makes you want to cry. If it's a ballad, you feel something. You relate to the lyrics. You know, a lot of classical music, the kids in the generation growing up today just don't have the tools to relate to it yet. They haven't been given it. So I think that there are a lot of similarities. The difference is how it's how the kids are exposed, if they're exposed at all, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's about the way it's presented, right? It's not just shoving it, you know, into their faces and having them react. It's setting it up somehow.
It's not as easy because classical music is not really everywhere in our culture. You know, when children these days turn on the television, play a video game, anything that involves media primarily is popular music. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some really good pop music out there. But think about it from the other perspective, which is if every opportunity when a child heard pop music, they heard classical music, then that would be what they knew. And they would feel the same affinity for that. You know, it's about awareness and familiarity. I think classical music scares younger generation, mainly because they just don't know, you know?
Yeah. Switching gears just a little bit, you have reached such wonderful success, both in classical music before you left it, or, you know, moved a little bit away from it, and in pop. What do you think are the biggest influences for you? What people or experiences do you think really shaped you as an artist?
Well, as far as songwriters go, when I was in high school and really kind of starting to really pay attention to music that was my own choice, not the music that I heard my parents listening to or a babysitter listening to, you know. The artists that I found were like Tori Amos, U2, Counting Crows, Indigo Girls, Sarah McLachlan, all amazing songwriters, lyrics. I mean, Indigo Girls are some of the most profound lyricists I've ever discovered. But also with a hookiness, a sense of you get that melody into your head and you remember, like U2. I could hear a U2 song once, and even if I'd never heard it before, I know it's U2 because I know that hook, I know that style. And what I really liked about kind of them, you know, U2 and Tori Amos and all that, is the ability that they have to say something intimate, personal, profound, but in this kind of pop exterior, you know. In the classical world, I was always a huge just fan of Mozart. Still, I mean, Amadeus is like one of my all-time favorite movies. Mozart and Strauss, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. And I don't know how much of my classical education and my classical ear comes out in my songwriting. I don't know. I don't think it probably does necessarily, but I think I can't help but be informed by like Mozart's simplicity of melody. You know, like why go all the way to Z to get from A to B? Just go to B, you know? Yeah.
And what is your process like when you're approaching songwriting? Do you get just some kind of melody in your head and go from that, or how do you start?
I don't really have one process. It really depends on a couple things. I mean, I write by myself. I also have collaborators who I co-write with. Sometimes I'll start with a kind of melodic idea. Like I'll sit down at the piano and I'll find a little nugget that I'll expand upon, and I won't really have any idea lyrically or emotionally what I want to write about. I know I like this kind of melodic motion, and so I'll just hum da 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 like a vocal line, and then sometimes in that process a phrase will stick out in my head, like just for feel or something. And when I get to a place in the song, I find myself every time I get to that place in the song, singing those lyrics just for feel. So then I'll know, okay, something subconscious is going on that's telling me that I really want to say just for feel there. So now I'm going to sit down away from the keyboard and think about what do I want to say? Like, where's that coming from? So I'll have basically the whole melodic and chordal structure of the song and then go back and say, okay, what am I thinking about? What do I want to say? But I've also had other experiences where it's exactly the opposite, where like I'll sit down with the co-writer and we'll be like, what's going on in your life? What's going on in my life? Like, what do we want to talk about? You know, do we want this song to be an internal thing, or do we want to be commenting on something in the world? Like, and we come up with a whole, there's a song on my record called The Elephant in the Room. It's the title track to the record. We wrote, me and my co-writer Zeev wrote as a complete poem, basically. And we hadn't sat down at the piano. We had no melody. We had nothing. We just wrote lyrics. And then, you know, I sat down at the piano and he took up his guitar and we, you know, found the song from there. So I don't think that, I like that I don't have an absolute definite process, because it can lend itself to however I'm feeling like working in a given day, you know? And that's okay, because that's where the song wants to be. Can't make it what it's not.
So you said that you had been writing pop songs forever before you finally had the courage to show it to someone, and now, you know, the whole world can hear your songs, which is so exciting. How did it feel for you when your first song, Me With Me, I think was the first song that was actually featured on television on NBC? How did it feel for you when you heard your song?
It was very cool because it was on this show called Related, and the scene was the teenage girl and her friends are having a slumber party. And so they rush into her bedroom and they're like all giggling, and they take out like the boom box and they put it down and they press play, and it's my song that comes out. And, you know, the whole scene has got my music then in the background, and then they're quiet, and at the end the music like swells and you know, it plays it out. And I remember thinking to myself, like, because TV is really, you know, it's not about the music, really, TV. So I remember thinking to myself, like, am I the only one who's hearing this? Like, are people just watching the dialogue? Is anybody even, like, paying attention to the fact that my song is playing out of the boom box? And I was like, probably not. I'm like, but that's okay, you know, because that's how TV goes. Like, you just never know how they're going to weave your song in there. But it is a sense of accomplishment, you know, that out of thousands of songs, you know, that my song is the song that they picked, you know, to go with the moment, to go with the drama. And, you know, definitely a far cry from being in 7th grade. And my best friend at the time, she used to write these lovesick diatribes to the guy who she was infatuated with, as we do in 7th grade, right? And she would give them to me, and I would sit down at the piano and I would write songs. I would write melodies around these, like, just horrific, like, tear your heart out 7th grade girl angst. And when I think about how and at the time I didn't even know that I really liked doing it. I just did it, you know? And had I known then that, you know, 15 years later or whatever, I'd be like sitting and watching NBC with my friends and being like, wait, we gotta pause, let's go back. We listen to it again, it's on TV, you know. Thank God for TiVo. But it's definitely a far cry from writing 7th grade love songs. Whew.
I think I haven't seen that episode, unfortunately, of that show, but it sounds like a great setup for your song. Usually songs appear just kind of in the background, no attention is drawn to the fact that they're even playing. Yeah. And in that case, it sounds like there was really, since there was at least, it was turned on, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you have a favorite song that you've written, or a couple favorites?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's like, you know, it's like asking a mother to pick her favorite child. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true, because every song comes from me and it's a part of my consciousness that I'm, you know, releasing out into the ether. I mean, I have songs that I like more than others, you know, depending on my mood, but gosh, I really can't answer that question. There are different songs that I think highlight different things about me and about my writing and about just me as a person personally. I mean, the most personal song that I have ever written is that song that I was talking about where we wrote the entire prose first, called Elephant in the Room. And that's definitely the most personal song I've ever written. So it's special in that way because it required me to really just put it all out there and not judge myself and not worry that anybody else would judge, you know.
Do you have any advice for aspiring songwriters or singers? What do you wish you had known when you were just starting out?
That the music business changes on a dime. The music business, when, you know, so say there's a 20-year-old aspiring singer-songwriter out there now playing in coffee houses and playing at whatever. The music business as it exists today will not be the same in 2 years. And it will not be the same in 2 years from then. And you think that you've got it figured out. You think, okay, I know that if I play in these places and I make contact with these people and have my songs on these TV shows, and then I'll get to the next level, you know. And once you do all that, and then in a year or two, because the business is in trouble. I mean, you know, people don't pay for songs anymore. People download for free. People, you know, the business has changed so much, even in the 6 years that I've done it, that I would say to an aspiring songwriter, be constantly in touch with how the landscape is changing. You know, when I was first coming up, I didn't have a day job. I mean, because I had enough money from TV licenses and from selling songs on iTunes to, you know, like, basically equal the crappy $15 an hour day job that I had, you know, so I quit. And I had plenty of money to do that. You couldn't do that today because people don't pay for music. There's all of these websites out there that are in China and North Korea, and, you know, that there are no laws in these countries, so they can just put websites up with your stuff, and it's not just indie artists, it's Beyonce, it's Michael Jackson, you know, and there is virtually nothing that the U.S. government can do to stop it. And then what happens is websites in the United States then spring up and they link to those websites, and that's totally legal because they're not hosting the content. What's illegal is hosting other people's copywritten material and giving it away for free. But they're not hosting it. The foreign websites are hosting it. And so if you go to one of these American websites and you type in Arden Kaywin, you could get a list of 20 different websites that are giving away my songs. And people just don't value paying for music the way they used to. And the television people have realized that, okay, well, people are not buying records anymore, so artists are hungry for exposure another way, and they've realized as a television show like The OC and Grey's Anatomy, you know, those shows can break an artist. Think about The Fray. I mean, nobody knew who The Fray was until How to Save a Life became like the Grey's Anatomy major song. And it's amazing. And so these now television shows know that they can break an artist, and so the fees that they used to pay you for using your music have gone down and down and down and down because they say, it's great exposure for you. So I used to get $5,000 for a license, then it went to $3,000, then it went to $1,500, now it's $700 that you're splitting with your agent. $350. I mean, it's, you know, so now the landscape is so very different that you have to tour. The only way that you can make money and sustain yourself as an independent artist is you have to get on the road. Tickets and t-shirts. That's how you make money. Selling tickets and selling t-shirts. And, you know, my life, I'm in a little bit of a different place now. I did a 19-city tour this summer, but do I want to be on the road for 1 million days a year? I don't know. But if I was a 22-year-old artist realizing that the landscape was changing around me, you bet I would get on the road and I'd do 150 dates. I would if I was just starting out again, because that's what you have to do. So, the biggest piece of advice is to realize how the business is, and you can't fight it. You cannot fight it. There's nothing you can do to change it. Even if you're if you're the lucky artist who happens to get a gigantic record deal and you're at Universal, you're at, Warner Brothers, you have to tour. You cannot rely on downloads, or sales in that manner. Know the business. Don't rely on managers to do it for you. Don't rely on, agents to do it for you. Know what's in a contract, because you at the end of the day are the one who's going to run your career. You know what the landscape is, and if you need to kind of, retweak a direction or whatever. At the end of the day, the people I know who have maintained careers for long periods of time are the ones who really know the business themselves as an artist and as a business person, because it is not show friends, it is show business, you know, and you have to view it that way. It's too easy otherwise to get the wool pulled over your eyes, to get taken advantage of, and to miss opportunities, you know. So.
I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you for that. What do you have coming up? So you're not touring.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I am working on some new music, and you know, it's really interesting because I thought to myself, okay, do I want to make, because Elephant in the Room came out last year, so this would be right about the time where I'm thinking, okay, am I going to make another record? And you know, who's going to do it with me, and what are the songs going to be? But as I look at the landscape, speaking of looking at the landscape, people don't buy full albums anymore. You go on and you see, oh, Beyonce has a new album out, and you go to iTunes and you listen to the bits of the songs and you buy the 5 that you think you kind of like based on the sample, right? That doesn't mean that it didn't cost Beyonce the same amount of money to produce the 10 songs that she's got on her record, even though you're buying 5 of them, right? So it's this enormous upfront capital investment that you're just not getting back. We aren't in the same way anymore. So then I had this idea, well, maybe I might do an experiment. And I haven't decided officially yet if I'm going to do this. I have to see how the business of it would play out. But the idea is, instead of releasing a whole album, all 10 or 12 songs at once and then touring with it, do something called the Singles Project and release a song a month for a year. And at the end of that, then you have 12 songs, and at the end of the year, I could package them together and people could buy all of them if they wanted. But release a song a month and publicize it via all the social networks, you know, this month's song, and do kind of a subscription thing. So, you know, if you subscribe, then you get the song. I don't know exactly how it would work, but that's an idea that I'm toying with as a way to kind of try something new in this kind of landscape and see if it would work. And of course, yeah, I'd have to go tour and everything, but that's fun. Just not for 150 days a year.
That sounds like a really great project. I also wanted to ask you about your music videos because, well, first of all, I wanted to mention, you mentioned the hook earlier, and I really think that you have that, listening to your songs, there's a really distinct color to them, and there's a distinct sound to them that I think is very clearly you, you know. So I think that's really cool, and I think your videos are also very much like that. Can you talk about how you go about deciding, you know, how to creatively plan the video, and are you part of that process? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like for the Let It Go music video, you know, I look and I see, okay, well, what resources do I have? And one of my very close friends from college, she's a dancer and an aerialist. And I went to see a show that she did, which had all of these girls on silks dangling from the ceiling, doing these amazing acrobatic aerial works. And I just kind of filed that away in the back of my head. And then when I was thinking about, well, what do I want to do for this music video? You know, I don't have $100,000 budget to do it. So what do I have? Who's in my life? What things are cool that maybe we could put something together? And I was like, oh, Carrie and the aerialists, you know? And so I called my friend Carrie and the woman who choreographed for their thing. Her name is Kati. And we put our heads together, and I brought in a director friend of mine, Jeff Wadlow, and Carrie and Jeff and Kati and I, we all brainstormed how we could incorporate the aerialists into this idea of the Let It Go music video. And so we decided upon this idea of them being kind of an alter ego or kind of alter consciousness. So the scenario is I come home and, you know, we kind of concocted this whole thing where, okay, so she comes home and she's had kind of a bad date, and maybe she's done the walk of shame and it's early in the morning and she's angry with herself, you know, that she's kind of got herself into this situation and she can't just let it go. And these, you know, aerialists just descend from the sky and start kind of reminding her about how she's feeling. You know, they're handing her kind of things that, you know, from outside of the frame, and they're you know, swinging back and forth in the frame. And on the one hand, it's kind of a cool idea just visually, and those girls are such amazing acrobats. It's so difficult to do what they do. So it's really cool to watch it just from a visual point of view. And I didn't want to be like up singing and dancing all around in my video. I wanted the focus to be more on the music. So it serves that purpose too, in that, you know, I'm in it, but it's more an ambiance of feeling that the aerialists kind of help to convey. So we shot it in one day. And it was just a 2-camera shoot, no special effects. Everything you see there, really happened. And then it was, edited together in a couple days. And it's really difficult to come up with an idea for a music video because you don't want to be cheesy and just basically act out the song. At least I think that's cheesy, acting out the scenario of the whole song. Then it doesn't leave anything to the imagination of the person listening to it, But without a gigantic budget, you have to be really creative about what you can do. So the best advice that anybody ever gave me on that was just like, you have a lot of resources. Use what you have. Like if you put your mind to it, you will find people in your life and who, can create and do really cool things. And it may not be what your initial concept was. Like I never really thought of having aerialists in my video, but then it can actually create something really cool. And you haven't spent $100,000,
Well, it sounds like everything you do is really a masterful ability to take your resources and maximize them, and you've been doing so well, and that's so exciting. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
And I hope that your 12-month,
I will let you guys know. I will let you know for sure.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to you. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us today.
You're welcome. This is the song called On the Edge, and it's from my first record, Quarter Life Crisis. come to being. That song came with this first. And I was desperately trying to find a melody above that. is the melody. And then I don't know where the rest came from, but yeah. So that's on the edge.
That's awesome.
This is a new song called So Simple. Why do we tie our world up in knots? We complicate, completely escalate the way we overstate everything. Why do we prize what we haven't got? Every day we take the bait. What do we do this for anyway? And I wanna believe we don't need to hide. Oh, why do we bleed? Forget how to breathe when all that we need so simple. So simple. Unplug the day, just close your eyes. Let the drama fade away and sink into a place where we're satisfied. Lie here with me, so safe inside. Feel the way the waves wrap around us as my heart beats a lullaby. And I wanna believe we don't need to hide. Oh, I'm starting to see that when you're with me, a moment can be so simple. So simple. Suddenly I feel your energy, it's coming over me, just like a dream that I fly invisibly. Suddenly you're floating next to me, a star-shifting paradigm, and so simple. Why do we tie our world up in knots? I can feel the string unraveling. It's such an easy thing, 'cause everything's simple. So simple. So So simple. This is a song called Over You. You pushed me away too many times, so why can't why can't I get over you and lie to myself, give you excuses?